but I'm going to pay for the loan out of my own pocket. So instead of paying for it out of my investments, I'm going to pay for it out of the money that I get from my job or other hustles that I'm trying to figure out, like maybe YouTube, if, people like and share my stuff. Hey everybody, my name's AJ and this is the Wealthy Idiot Show. Before we get any further, please make sure to like and subscribe. Anything you do helps us out tremendously, and we can spread this message of financial peace and pro-investor status to as many people as possible. And thank you to everyone who has supported us thus far. We greatly appreciate it. If you've been following this channel for a while, you'll know that I got married within the last year, and we brought two families and mushed them together. And one of the things that we had to figure out and we were struggling with was, how do we transport this whole crew around? We needed a new baby hauler 9000. And what we had was two cars that could seat probably 4 people in each car, and we couldn't fit everybody. So the first thought we had was, let's go look at some vans. But this was at the peak of the used car market. Just everything's so expensive. And we looked around and we saw vans that were just extremely disappointing. Vans with tens of thousands of miles on them, used for multiple years, still in the price of $60,000 to almost $70,000 in some cases. And it was a really underwhelming car. Like, just cloth seats, no features, plastic all over the place. I don't know, it just wasn't worth it. Until my stepdaughter found the Kia Telluride on the internet. Now, I haven't been a Kia fan. I've never owned one before. But we had to go check this car out. And when we got to the dealership, they had a model that was just totally decked out. So we took a look. It had leather seats, adaptive driving, the CarPlay, heated and cooled seats, automatic everything. It was, the most features I've ever seen in a car. At this point, I don't think I could ever go backwards. Now I'm a little bit spoiled as the quality of this car, but I want you guys to check it out real quick. So after we saw it and fell in love with it, we knew we had to get my wife this car to haul around the whole crew. I didn't yet sit down and figure out the finances for this. So we pre-ordered the car. That gave us a few weeks as we were waiting for the car to come in. And then I got to sit down and try to figure out what to do financially. So I already had the cash I was sitting on to purchase this car. I've spouted off on this channel before that you shouldn't go into consumer debt, even for things like cars. And so my first thought was we were just going to take the cash, buy the car outright. Until I started thinking about it a little harder. And this is where Dave Ramsey's going to get a little mad at me. But I figured out how to get this car not only for free, but for a net value. We actually got more value than what we would have just buying the car with cash. Now, hear me out. This is going to be confusing. So the first scenario that I was looking at was buying this car with cash. We pay cash, we get a car in return. The car itself, after a 6-year period, depreciates on average 8% per year. So after 6 years, our car, which was originally worth probably about $60,000, would be worth about $35,000. Probably somewhere between 30 and 35, but we'll just say 35 just so that we could do all the math here. But we ended up paying a little bit more than $60,000 because in the grand state of California, you have to pay taxes and registration and fees, and every government bureaucracy gets some piece of this transaction. So after it was all said and done, this car cost us about $72,000. So in the cash method, this is a real simple calculation. You show in the lost category what you paid in the cash, and you show in the gain category what your car is worth. And we're going to look in a period of 6 years because this is what loan I ended up getting was a 6-year loan. So in the course of 6 years, I have to see how much I paid versus what my value is at the end of that 6-year period. And if we paid $72,000 and the car is only worth $35,000, so this transaction ultimately would have cost us $37,000 to make. If you consider $37,000 over the course of a 6-year period, that comes out to be about $61,100 a year. That's not a terrible price to pay for a vehicle, and one that we think is just outstanding. Looks nice, has great features. We feel pretty fancy. So I think that that's not terrible. But I had to do the calculations for what if I financed this thing and invested that cash instead. Because, I run this Wealthy Idiots channel. And, me and my partner are constantly looking for ways to improve. And our first baby step, if you roll back a little bit, our first baby step when we replaced Dave Ramsey's baby steps was to track your net worth. It's more important to follow your net worth than it is to follow the amount of cash or assets you have in your bank account. You need to know your net worth. And with that in mind, I set out to try and find a way to get my net worth to be in the positive at the end of the 6-year period, as opposed to being in the negative. And so this is what I figured out to do. The first thing I did was I took that $72,000 and I invested it into something with an average of a 10% return. We're going to come back to this in a little while because over a 6-year period, I think that we can get a pretty good return on that money, especially if the economy bounces back. We may not have bought at the bottom of the dip, but this $72,000 went in when the economy was already sliding downhill, which meant that we got a pretty good price on those investments. And when the economy starts coming back, we're going to see some pretty good gains. So I think we can do at least 10%, if not even better than that, on our investments. The second thing I've got to do is figure out how to finance this thing as cheaply as possible. So I went around looking for financing, and this is before interest rates really started to skyrocket. So I was right in that middle space where everything costs a lot, interest rates are still kind of low, so this could kind of work out. So I found an interest rate that was pretty close to 2%. It was 2.1 something, and we could finance most of this vehicle. And so instead of taking that $72,000 and purchasing the vehicle, I invested it. I financed this car, and over the course of this entire 6-year period, this car will end up costing us about $86,000. So this is where Dave Ramsey got a little mad, but remember, I'm not just taking out a loan, I'm taking out a loan backed by these assets that I'm purchasing. And yeah, there's a little bit of risk in there, but I'm going to pay for the loan out of my own pocket. So instead of paying for it out of my investments, I'm going to pay for it out of the money that I get from my job or other hustles that I'm trying to figure out, like maybe YouTube, if, people like and share my stuff. So if you got ahead of the game and you did the math, you probably figured out that a $72,000 with a 10% annual return will get us pretty close to about $130,000. Well, $130,000 is outstanding. So we can take that $130,000, subtract the cost of the vehicle, which is $86,000, and we come to a net benefit of $44,000. That means that we made $44,000 over the course of owning this car. Because we have the original asset, which is $130 minus what we've spent on the vehicle. That's how much money. Plus, we get the added benefit of still owning the vehicle. We still have all the equity inside the car itself. So after 6 years, if we decide to turn around and sell this thing, we could probably sell it between $30,000 and $35,000. We'll add that on to our 44, and our net worth over the course of the 6-year period would have grown by nearly $80,000. So we went from being negative $35,000 in net worth over 6 years to investing our money and being positive nearly $80,000 after the 6-year period. So not only did I get my wife a nice baby hauler for $0 out of pocket, I get that, cash obviously comes out of my pocket, but net worth is growing faster than the cash can leave my pocket. So with pretty much zero, but I'm actually gaining in net worth over time doing this strategy. So ultimately, we got paid to buy this car. That's not too bad. So we've already started this strategy and we've already seen major growth. In fact, my investments have been doing pretty well even in the current economy, and I've seen growth about to the same amount of money that I've spent on this vehicle so far. So if you subtract like gas and, we haven't spent anything on maintenance yet or anything, but if you subtract, gas, then this car has essentially been free. And if the economy bounces back and our investments do even better, we're going to end up being in the net positive at the end of this thing. So the takeaway I want from you guys is this. First off, I had the cash before I purchased this vehicle. So even though I did take out a loan and I did anger Dave Ramsey and I did some finagling, I did have the cash and I made a decision about what to do with that cash, as opposed to being in a position where I didn't have the cash and I was thinking about the monthly payment. That's key number one. If you're going to make good, smart financial decisions, you have to be able to make these decisions. You have to have the cash to make these decisions. This whole scenario doesn't work without that cash. So that's rule number one. Number two is I want you to take away the idea that you can be creative with these things to try and find solutions. It doesn't always work, but this is what the wealthy do to try and figure out how to get the things that they want while not impacting their overall bottom line. I don't want to spend money on things that depreciate. I really don't. If I can use someone else's money on stuff that depreciates and my money continues to appreciate at a faster rate, my investments appreciate at a faster rate than I have to spend on that debt, that's a really good creative way of ensuring that I can get the thing without taking a loss. And so I want to encourage you, maybe not to do this strategy specifically, but to get creative and to think about ways to do this. We, give examples and show things on this channel in order to try and spark that creativity in people. And I hope you're able to see what it was that I did here in order to get this vehicle at no cost to myself. So if you liked what you saw, if you're excited about free cars, hit a like down below. If you got questions on how this worked, make sure to comment and ask those. I try to respond as fast as possible, usually within a few hours. And make sure to check out wealthyidiots.com. We're posting stuff. Tax season is right around the corner. My tax accountant emailed me today to let me know that. But we post articles about taxes and how to avoid taxes legally. And before the end of the year, there's some moves you're going to want to make before it hits January 1st. So make sure to get over to the website to see what those are. And I want to thank you guys for stopping by. I super appreciate it, and I'll see you guys next time.